And I just have to say that song was a lot easier to sing than the one we opened up with. That one was hard. We don't sing it often enough, I guess. But now we do have to say it's nice to be back. In fact, it feels like we've come home. We've made it all the way through the circuit once, and they didn't kick us out of California yet. So we're pretty excited about that. But no, we don't know if we're going to be here for the full 3 years yet. We'll just wait and see in March. You know what they call it for traveling brothers in March, right? It's called March Madness. That's when we all get our assignment letter if we're going to be moving or not. So we'll just wait and see. But until then, we're going to enjoy whatever time we have. And, of course, we're going to enjoy this week as we kind of flip through the records a little bit this afternoon. We can certainly see that you friends are enduring in Jehovah's service. And we'll give you a couple of those points that we gleaned from that on Thursday evening once more. And I think you'll be pleased. There's a lot of increases, a lot of things that you can be proud of about what you're doing individually and as a congregation. And, of course, a lot of that has to do with our subject matter. The theme for our discussion tonight, increasing our share in the marking work. And as you're thinking about that theme, we want you to think about something else for just a moment. I want you to think about your bank account and what your balance is in the bank account. Now, write it on a piece of paper and pass it over your shoulder to the person behind. No, I'm just kidding. No. But just think about the bank account for a second. Are you happy with the balance? Now, what would you think if your bank all of a sudden started depositing extra money in your account? In fact, they gave you thousands of dollars each day. $86,400 to be exact. Every morning, they would deposit that amount in your account. What would you think? Yeah, we're thinking, let's open up 2 accounts, if that's the case. If they're going to deposit that much money, bring it on. We'd like to see that. But what if it came with these conditions, though, that you couldn't carry any balance forward from day to day? You couldn't keep any cash in your account. And every evening, whatever portion of the amount that you failed to use, they took it away, and at midnight, your balance went back to zero. Now, the next morning, $86,400 again. And so you might think, well, that's okay. You know, if those were the conditions, we couldn't carry anything forward, you can't keep anything in the account, and it just basically stays a perpetual $86,400, what would we do with the money every day? Yeah, if you're like me, man, I'd take out every penny. And I'd spend it. I'd have a good time. We'd go, and hopefully we'd use much of it to our advantage, because when it's gone, and then it comes back, and it replenishes itself. And we would try to use it wisely. And maybe you know where we're going with this, because in reality, we all have that type of account, don't we? It's called time. Every morning, our account is credited with 86,400 seconds. And we have to determine how we're going to use it, how we're going to spend it, where we're going to invest it. You know, at the end of the day, it rules off as lost whatever portion we failed to use. We can't carry any balance forward. There are no overdrafts. We can't draw against tomorrow. We have to make sure that we use it wisely. Our time, each portion of it. Now, with that in mind, what we'd like to do for the next few minutes is, for lack of a better term, discuss a little financial planning. And there are a number of areas that we could consider, you know, because it takes an investment of our 86,400 seconds in each day to put on the new personality. We have to work at that each day. We spend some time in pursuit of that. It takes an investment, a large investment of that amount of time to provide the necessities of life for ourselves, for our families. And, of course, it takes a portion of that 86,400 seconds to be actively involved in this marking work or the disciple-making work. And that's where we want to spend the bulk of our time this evening. Because even when it comes to the ministry, you know, like any other investment, if we want more out of it, if we want a larger yield, if we want a greater dividend, what do we have to do investment-wise? Yeah, normally invest more. That produces many times a larger reward, greater dividends. And think of what we're investing in. We have the opportunity to invest our time in the only organization that's going to be around the day after Armageddon. This is a good payday. This is one of those things that when someone tells you it's a sure thing, you want to invest now, this is it. It's the only sure thing you're going to find. And we want to remind ourselves of just what the activity of our organization is focused on. It has to do with what we mentioned, the marking work. And so let's go to our theme text for our discussion. It's taken from Ezekiel chapter 9, of course. And we want to consider, what is the marking work? Who's involved in it? What's it mean? What's at stake? Why do we want to invest our precious time, our asset, our resource in this work? As we look at Ezekiel 9, we're going to consider the first several verses. See if you don't agree that we want to invest as much as possible in this activity, especially when we consider what's at stake. Now, in the first couple of verses, we get the main players, the major characters identified for us. So look at verses 1 and 2, and we're going to see 7 men. Verse 1, Ezekiel chapter 9, we're told, "And he proceeded to call out in my ears with a loud voice, saying, Have those giving their attention to the city come near, each one with his weapon in his hand for bringing ruin. And look, there were 6 men coming from the direction of the upper gate that faces to the north, each one with his weapon for smashing in his hand. And there was one man in among them clothed with linen, with a secretary's inkhorn in his hips. And they proceeded to come in and stand beside the copper altar." Now you picture the scene. Here's these 7 guys. 6 of them have weapons for smashing. I don't even know what that is, but it doesn't sound good, does it? And then you have this one guy. He's a secretary, linen-clad. He's in amongst them. Now, what would happen? What's going to go on? What are the men with smashing weapons going to do? Well, it's interesting. In the next verse, attention is not turned to what they're going to do, but more importantly, the single man, the one in linen, is singled out. Look at verse 3. It says, "And as regards the glory of the God of Israel, it was taken up from over the cherubs, over which it happened to be, to the threshold of the house, and he began calling out to the man that was clothed with linen, at whose hips there was the secretary's inkhorn." So why was he singled out? Is he going to get smashed by the other guys with the weapons? What's happening? What's going on? No. Notice the commission. And this is what we want to kind of log away in our mind for the theme for the rest of our discussion. Verse 4. What would that man in linen do? The one with the secretary's inkhorn? Here was his commission. "And Jehovah went on to say to him, Pass through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem, and you must put a mark on the foreheads of the men that are sighing and groaning over all the detestable things that are being done in the midst of it." Now, you get the idea. This was a heavy assignment. It was very serious what this man in linen, the one with the secretary's inkhorn, was going to have to do. He not only had to go through the city and search out every person in it that was sighing, that was groaning, that wanted things to be restored to the way Jehovah intended for them. He not only had to locate them and find them within the population, but he had 6 guys with weapons for smashing, for bringing ruin on his heels. So he couldn't loiter at his business. He had to invest his time wisely. His assignment was so important because if he didn't mark someone, if they weren't identified as those that were loyal to Jehovah, that were sighing and groaning over what was being done in Jehovah's temple, the disgusting things there, they would be destroyed. So his work was very important. And then we think about the work today. You know what? It's the exact same work. The same marking work is going on today. And yes, we understand that the anointed remnant impelled by Jehovah's Spirit, they're the ones that are taking the lead in this work. They're spearheading it. But even as members of the great crowd, we have a tremendous share in this marking work, a tremendous responsibility. And that's why as one united group, we go from house to house, and we try to identify those that are concerned about matters today, identify those that want a relationship with our Creator, that want to know Jehovah as we do. And it involves a lot more than just knocking on their door, and we take out an ink pad, stamp them on the forehead as they come to the door. No, because you know what the mark is today? Do you know what it means for someone to be marked for survival? What work we're involved in? It's not just that they're interested in the truth. No, but those that are marked for survival, they not only sigh and groan, but they've come to an accurate knowledge, and that mark is their dedication and baptism. It's the fact that they're putting on the Christ-like new personality. That's the mark. So this is more than just a rubber stamp process, and we just try to stamp as many as we can. No, this really involves as large a portion, as large of an investment of that 86,400 seconds that we have in a day, as we try to help others not only get interested in knowing about Jehovah, but decide to dedicate their lives, symbolize that by a water baptism. So we invest a tremendous amount of time in that capacity. And the great thing is that people are responding. In fact, I don't know about you, you've probably all gotten your yearbooks now, or maybe your most recent Kingdom Ministry. And to me, the biggest highlight, when we look at the annual report, okay, yeah, I want to see partakers, I want to see how many were at the memorial, I want to know how many were baptized. And because sometimes we get in the mode that, well, you know, things are slowing down, not many are coming into the truth now. But did you realize that this past service year, the 2007 service year, that on average around the globe, 817 per day dedicated their life to Jehovah. They were marked for survival. 817 a day. That's like 8 or 9 congregations every day. In fact, just our circuit, and it's not happening just in far-off lands. You realize that in our circuit, for about the last 5 to 6 years, that was as far as I went back and checking the records, on average, we have those that are marked for survival about 3 a month. On average. You see, people are coming into the truth. People are disgusted with the system around us. People are being marked for survival in time so that they don't get destroyed by those men, or angels as it would be, with weapons for smashing. And what do people do once they get marked for survival? What do we do? Well, we start to rethink how we invest our time. We start to get actively involved in this marking work. Maybe you remember the experience in the yearbook. It was a couple years ago now. It was a 2005 yearbook. And there was an experience there of a man that did that. As soon as he heard the good news, his name was Malcolm Hall, he started to invest his time wisely in the disciple-making work, in the marking work. And he did that after he heard one public discourse. He immediately started going out, sharing what he learned with others, trying to make disciples, trying to find others that were sighing and groaning. Now, he was an amazing example of this, of really utilizing his time. And he looked for ways to increase his share. Now, his experience happened a number of years ago. He was baptized in 1915 in the country of Guyana. And it was during turbulent times. There was a lot of opposition early on for him, a lot of ridicule. There was even some periods early on of civil unrest where the country was divided and everyone